Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I am always so grateful to sit on a committee like this that works in such a collegial, bipartisan way. We have made real progress together, progress that we should be proud of, progress that has connected our communities, created good-paying jobs, and helped make our infrastructure stronger, safer, more stable, and resilient. But today, unfortunately, is different. At the behest of Donald Trump, as part of his new economic plan for America, we are being asked to slash $10 billion in transportation and infrastructure spending, not to invest in our people, not to fortify our bridges, not to shore up our cargo fleets, not to make sure air travel is as safe as can be, not to dredge our harbors on time, but to slash funding at a time when so much more is actually needed. And why? So that Republicans can bankroll tax breaks for their billionaire buddies. We can invest in the infrastructure we need in America, and we can pay for it. We just can't also give out tax breaks to billionaires. We should say no. This is not an economic plan that's good for America. This president's economic vision is not one that is good for America, and you don't have to take my word for it. Just this morning, as the first quarter GDP reports have been released, we've seen the American economy shrink as we barrel towards a recession. This is bad for Americans and the American economy. Let me be clear. I stand on fiscal responsibility. I do believe in ending wasteful spending. Fraud should be rooted out from every corner of our budget to maximize accountability with taxpayer dollars. But there is nothing fiscally responsible about this budget. Undercutting our critical infrastructure and shortchanging our dedicated men and women in the Coast Guard, that's not waste, that's not fraudulent. Supporting these individuals in this infrastructure is what the taxpayers want, and it's what America needs. We have an incredible opportunity in this committee to do something remarkable for America, to come together in a bipartisan way and pass a fiscally responsible budget that puts working American families first, that supports smart, long-term investments. I will be offering many amendments today to that end that support our Coast Guard, that protects our Great Lakes, and so much more. As many of my colleagues have remarked, the cuts don't stop here. The effort to undercut our investment in America goes far beyond this committee and far beyond transportation and infrastructure, but it does directly undermine the very progress that we have worked so hard to make together. These cuts that target waste, these cuts, they don't target waste, they target people. They target the mom in Grand Rapids juggling 2 jobs to keep her kids insured. They target the senior in Muskegon who relies on home-delivered meals to stay independent and healthy. Let's be clear about who these cuts are for and who they hurt. We should be using this moment to strengthen critical infrastructure, fiscally responsible investments, not undermining the very progress that we have worked together to build. The language we're marking up today is just one of many down payments being pushed through Congress to pave the way for the president's expensive, bloated tax cuts that actually harm our economy. We are being asked to make decisions today that will hinder our ability to do the work we need to do tomorrow. Supporting this legislation doesn't just hurt the people we serve, it undoes decades of bipartisan progress to instead greenlight devastating cuts to essential services. That's not why I came to Congress. That's not why Michiganders sent me here. We can do better. Let's get back to work. Thank you. I yield back. Thank you, Mr. Chair. As the proud representative of Coast Guard City, USA, I am thrilled to hear the majority and this administration talk so strongly about looking to boost investments in our Coast Guard. To that end, I encourage my colleagues to support this critical amendment, the Pay Our Coast Guard Parity Act, to ensure that our coasties continue to receive their pay during government funding lapses, just as other branches of the military. During the president's first administration, we saw the longest government shutdown in history, lasting over a month. All the while, our Coasties were not compensated and left wondering how they were going to make ends meet. This meant that our service members did not receive childcare subsidies, death benefits, or even housing leases. Our hardworking Coast Guard deserves to be paid for their service as they protect our maritime borders and respond to emergencies, even if Congress can't get its act together. Again, I welcome my colleagues to support this amendment and my bill to bring us one step closer to the President's goal of uplifting our Coast Guard and ensuring our national security. Thank you. I yield back. My home state of Michigan put the world on wheels, and we are going to keep this country moving forward in the transportation space. This committee's bipartisan infrastructure law created the Corridor Identification and Development Program to support the development of new and improved intercity passenger rail services to spur local economies, create jobs, and connect our communities. Michigan has thoughtfully invested these Corridor ID dollars to advance existing service between Grand Rapids and Chicago by adding new frequencies and boosting reliability. While initial investments have been made to determine the scope, schedule, and cost for these developments, we cannot take our foot off the gas, not now. My amendment will ensure that the Secretary of Transportation cannot remove projects involved in the Corridor ID program that were identified prior to January 20th, 2025. We've already invested in these programs. We cannot lose what we invested already. Unfortunately, this is a real concern. We've seen this administration upend thoughtful investments across the country, and we cannot undercut the long-term planning and certainty necessary to better our passenger rail service. Particularly as this committee embarks on the upcoming surface transportation reauthorization, we must recommit ourselves to exploring all the ways we can connect folks to their jobs, schools, doctors, and community spaces. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back. The Coast Guard and Maritime Transportation Subcommittee has dedicated a significant amount of time to understand how Congress can improve Coast Guard recruitment and retention. And for good reason, too. Every single time I visit the Coast Guard stations in Grand Haven and Muskegon, right in my district, which I do frequently, I'm reminded of how many Coasties struggle to access childcare. As a working mom myself, I know firsthand how expensive and hard to find childcare can be. Beyond the sheer price, Coast Guard families are also tasked with finding providers that actually accept the service's fee assistance. Identifying childcare should be the least of our Coasties' concern. This amendment will make critical investments to increase the quality and access to childcare for Coast Guard members. Not only is this the least we can do for our fearless service members who make the ultimate sacrifice for our nation's safety, but my amendment will undoubtedly support this committee's work to bolster Coast Guard recruitment and retention. I welcome your support for this critical amendment to uplift Coasties aiming to care for their families while serving our country. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I am so proud to represent miles of beautiful Lake Michigan shoreline. The Great Lakes are our most precious natural resource, integral to spurring economic growth and preserving the Michigan way of life. That's why I'm introducing this amendment to fund the EPA's regional clean water programs, including the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative, critical to my district and our entire state. This multi-agency effort seeks to ensure safe drinking water and recreation, the delisting of areas of concern, the elimination of harmful species, and the protection of native habitats. Not only is this program critical to Michigan's economy and the environment, but it's an incredibly efficient use of taxpayer dollars. With every dollar of GLRI funding, it results in an estimated $3.35 in economic activity, over a threefold increase. Fortunately, the EPA oversees several regional clean water programs in addition to the GLRI, spanning from Louisiana to California to safeguard our communities' ecosystems and the economies that rely on them. I urge my colleagues, all of my colleagues, to join me in providing robust funding for our Great Lakes Restoration Initiative, as well as the EPA regional programs that keep our waters safe. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. This amendment would set aside 10% of the $2.64 billion included in the ANS for ATCs that are identified in Section 608 of the FAA reauthorization. These are air traffic control towers, some of the oldest in the country that have been overlooked and not prioritized. I have one of these in my district, and I know how frustrating it can be to not get the attention that it needs. I have been steadfast in urging investment in our aviation infrastructure, not only for my district, but others similarly situated across the country. This is to ensure the safety of consumers and aviation professionals alike. I am so pleased that this committee is in agreement on the need to bolster our air traffic control systems, and that includes remedying these maintenance backlogs of air traffic control towers. My district, as I mentioned, is home to Gerald R. Ford International Airport, where the FAA-owned and operated ATC is in need of relocation and major modernizations. This 60-year-old ATC has far surpassed the FAA's 40-year life expectancy, and it stands as one of the oldest among the top 75 busiest airports. The GRR's ATC, additionally, is situated on top of the terminal building. You heard me correctly, it is on top of the terminal building, impeding sight lines and hindering operations. This facility is undersized as well, which forces vital FAA technical operations engineers to be located off-site. To put it simply, GRR's current ATC no longer suits the needs of our growing community, Michigan's second largest city, and it can pose serious safety concerns. That's why I championed the language in this committee's most recent FAA reauthorization to prioritize the modernization of older, smaller hubs for ATCs. Now, in this budget bill, this amendment seeks to put our money where our mouth is. This amendment will continue to build on that effort by directing that 10% towards ATCs like this. I look forward to the committee building on the progress that we made in the FAA reauthorization of 2024 to keep aviation professionals and travelers safe. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. It should not come as a surprise to my colleagues on this committee after several years of working together that I will literally work with anyone to get things done, even those I largely disagree with, to get common sense things done for West Michigan. So let me be clear that President Trump and I share a common goal to support IVF and fertility treatments and to ensure that these treatments are accessible and affordable to Americans. This amendment, which would provide $10 million to allow for the funding of fertility treatment for covered Coast Guard members, is a first step in the right direction. As of now, our service members can only seek reimbursement for travel-related expenses, but not for the actual medical treatment necessary for them to build their families. The stress that it puts on these Coast Guard members while they are trying to serve cannot be overstated. It is also worth noting that TRICARE doesn't cover these procedures, so our Coast Guard members stationed all over the country and abroad to keep us safe are forced to pay for these treatments out of pocket. Ultimately, IVF treatment is extremely costly for our Coast Guard members, and the price poses a major barrier to people seeking IVF or similar therapies. This amendment will play a key role in fulfilling the President and my shared focus of making IVF accessible and affordable and supporting growing American families, starting with our coasties. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.